There's a strange kind of silence that follows insight. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes you feel distant, disconnected, like you're watching the world through a glass wall. It happens slowly. At first you think you're just paying more attention. You start noticing small things. A contradiction here, a lie there, a performance that everyone accepts as normal. And then it grows. You start seeing patterns in people, in systems, in conversations. You notice how often people say things they don't mean, how often they avoid silence, how little space there is for honesty. You don't know it yet, but something in you is shifting. And before long, you start to feel it. The loneliness of knowing too much. You're not smarter than anyone. That's not what this is about. It's not arrogance, it's not elitism. It's just that your mind won't stop asking why. And when you ask why enough times, the surface of things begins to break open. You see the mask behind the smile, the insecurity behind the bragging, the emptiness behind the noise. You watch people get angry, not because they're strong, but because they're afraid. You see people chase money, approval, and success, not because they truly want it, but because they don't know who they are without it. You start to understand that most of what we call normal is just survival dressed up in routine. And once you see that, it becomes almost impossible to unsee. But insight, as powerful as it is, comes with a cost. Suddenly, conversations that used to be easy become exhausting. Small talk feels like suffocation. You nod and smile, but you're not really there. You're thinking, analyzing, reading between every line. And often, what you find in those spaces between words is emptiness. Not because people are empty, but because they've forgotten how to be full. They've traded depth for distraction. They've confused attention with affection and connection with convenience. And so you find yourself drifting. Not because you want to, but because there's nowhere to stand. Most people don't want to talk about meaning, or mortality, or why they feel lost in a life they chose. And when you bring these things up, you feel the temperature shift. You're labeled too intense, too sensitive, too negative, too serious. But here's the thing. It's not that you're too serious. It's that so much of the world has forgotten how to be sincere. The loneliness of knowing too much is the ache of being conscious in a world that numbs itself. It's the quiet grief of realizing how much is broken and how little most people want to fix. You see relationships based on possession, not love. You see education that teaches obedience, not curiosity. You see spirituality sold like a product. You see people argue not to understand but to win. And sometimes, it makes you question everything. What's the point of seeing clearly if no one wants to look? What's the value of depth if the world is built on surfaces? Why reflect when you could just consume, scroll, and forget? These are real questions, and they don't have easy answers. But asking them is part of your path. You see, awareness separates. It creates distance, not because you want it to, but because most people aren't ready to meet themselves, let alone someone who sees through them. And yet, this is not a curse. It's a stage, a necessary phase in the process of waking up. You are not meant to stay in isolation, but you are meant to go through it. Solitude becomes the soil where self-knowledge grows. Silence becomes the mirror that shows you what noise was hiding. And loneliness becomes the doorway to truth. Because when you are alone with your thoughts long enough, something happens. You begin to hear your real voice, the one that isn't performing or pleasing or apologizing for existing. And that voice is the beginning of your real life. But still the ache remains. That quiet desire to be seen, to be understood without having to explain every layer of yourself, to be held in the presence of someone who doesn't try to fix you or dilute you or shrink you to fit their comfort zone. That kind of connection is rare but not impossible, not. Because while awareness creates distance from the many, it creates resonance with the few. And once you find someone who sees, you'll know. They won't look away when you speak the uncomfortable truth. They won't flinch at your complexity. They won't shame you for your silence. They will meet you at that depth, not with answers, but with presence. And in that moment, the loneliness that once felt like exile becomes a kind of home. So if you feel this way, if you've been sitting with thoughts too heavy to carry into small talk, know this. You're not broken. You're just aware. And awareness, by its very nature, sets you apart. But being apart doesn't mean being above. It means you've been given a different role, not to escape the world, but to see it, and maybe quietly help it heal. And healing doesn't come from noise. It comes from stillness, from people brave enough to sit in discomfort, to question the script, to choose truth over approval, depth over convenience, and meaning over mimicry. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's exhausting. Yes, sometimes you'll wish you could forget everything you've realized and just go back. But you can't. And deep down, you know you don't really want to. Because once you begin to see, you realize that clarity is a form of freedom. And freedom, even when it's lonely, is always better than comfort wrapped in illusion. So stay awake, stay gentle. Don't harden yourself just because the world doesn't understand you yet. There are others like you, thinking, feeling, questioning, trying to navigate this strange, complex existence with grace. And in time, you'll find each other. Until then, walk the lonely road with your head high and your heart open. Not everyone can walk it, but those who do it leave light behind them.